So, welcome back to the shop, everyone. I know it's been quite a while since I've done a video, so I'm probably a little rusty, but here goes anyway. We had dropped off yesterday a replacement shaft for an ATV clutch system. The way these work, they have a centrifugal clutch inside on the engine that allows you to get a neutral without physically letting go of the belt, so the belt always turns and prevents burning of the belt. And but what happens with a lot of these models is the drum gets a lot of wear. Now, I guess fellas put way too much load on these, so eventually it requires replacement. Guy ordered in a replacement shaft. What he had come in looks pretty well the same, but we have a difference in our splines and our let me see if I can do this on camera. What we have here is our spline from our old shaft won't fit over the new one. So we're sizing it up, and the biggest difference we can see in this is the tooth at the very tip is substantially wider on this one than it is on the older shaft. We measured it up with some thread wires between both, and they're 50 thousandths in the difference, so the depth. So is it just a change of spline, or a different cutter maybe? What we plan to do is grind a tool bit to match the older profile and index our spline here and recut these a little bit deeper to match the older shaft. Should work out. We'll see how it goes. So how we plan to control the depth of our cut is by using thread wires. We picked out a set of wires that will fit in the tooth and protrude from the top to give us a reading, but not bottom out in the root of the spline. And where this is 23 splines, we're going to have to grab 2 on that side, 1 on this side, and get a measurement. A little bit fiddly to get everything perfectly squared up, but what we wind up with is a couple of tenths, or about half thou over 97. This is for the older one, and on the newer one, we'll break with a different mic. So on our new one, we wind up with 1 inch and 47 thousandths. So it's 50 in the difference. All that remains is set it up and start cutting, I guess. So between the bench grinder, the Dremel, and the little diamond wheel, we've managed to grind up a tool that fits our spline pretty good here. I like to use some Sharpie in the spline and just run the tool up through by hand, looking for where it takes the Sharpie off. And you probably won't see it on camera, but by the last spline over here, we got her to where she's making decent contact on both sides and a very light cut at the bottom. So we're going to go with it. We'll be using this tool in a shop-made cutter. It's been cut so that the cutting edge of the tool will be on center line. Let's go the other way around because we're turning right-handed. So if we set this tool up so we just have enough protrusion here to clear, we should get into this corner just fine. Won't be a lot of clearance, but we'll make it. So over here in the mill, we got our 6-inch rotary table all squared off to the mill bit. On this side we have the brand spanking new 5-inch chuck for it. We'll get to checking that shortly. We made up an adapter plate last couple of days, so we'd be able to use this chuck. And well, so let's get our new shaft in here and see what kind of run out this thing is going to have. Being a 3-jaw, I don't expect it to be super. But we'll see. So let's get old Rivetting over here. Perhaps about there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's not terrible. Just lining up on an even digit there. So that's our low of 47, and our high is 49. So I can't call that terrible. Okay, it's Sunday morning, and being as how I don't remember where I left off yesterday, I'll just go over the setup for you, I guess. We got our rotary table on the mill table squared up, test fitted our shaft, checked for run out on that new chuck, and all is good. Tailstock set up, so we're down to selecting a plate for our spline. A little bit of math on the table. We take our table rotations divided by our number of splines. We get 3.9 turns of the handle, which works out to 3 turns and 21 holes in a 23 plate. So we got our plate picked out. And so of course life in the shop is never without complication. This is our 23 hole plate that we're going to use to cut this spline. We need to go 21 spaces. Well, if you look at it, if we start here and we take our 21 spaces, we come around to this hole. Now, in order to set up our sector arms, of course, we would normally put them on and pick our number of spaces and advance our sector arms as each spline is cut. In this case, to get 21 of 23 holes, my sector arms are never going to go around far enough. So our solution today is going to be remove an arm, and if you look carefully, one arm by itself will cover the space between where we're starting and where we're ending. So all we have to do is rotate the one arm. So we'll move it back around, come to here, and then we'll go to the next hole. Should work out. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so our setup is pretty much complete. All we have to do now is align the cutter with our existing splines. Now to do that, I have my 3 jaws left just barely loose enough where I can rotate the part. I'm going to take all the play from the tailstock, which is about there, and I'm still free to rotate. So now I need to align my spline using the y-axis and the rotation. And I would suspect that this camera is going to be just as helpful to me as it is to you, so let's get in close. Oh, too close. Let's try it just about there. So now I can bring my rotation down a little bit, bring my Y in a little bit more, and then readjust the rotation as required here. I should be able to take all the slop out of this. A little too much Y. Let's back off Y a little bit. Where we can just barely feel drag. So now we can bring our Y in just a little more. we have no more play. Our cutter just barely catches. Now would be a good time to tighten our chuck. Okay, chuck is tight. We've still got good alignment with our spline. And that's going to be our starting point. We'll make a round with a light cut, check it with our thread wires, and see where to go from there. So we've all had those jobs where we figure we got our game plan worked out and everything is going to go great, we get this knocked out and out the door. Such is the case. So we got this thing ready, set up our dividing head, all ready to go, and then we touch a tool bit to it, and we find out that it's not quite so soft as it seems. So we're on to plan B. Plan B is going to be take the old shaft, which is still in good shape. The drum is the problem. We remove the rivets, and we're going to do the same thing with our new shaft. Make up some new rivets, press it all together, and peen the rivets. And hopefully we'll get a new drum in place of this worn one. So we're going to face off the peened head on these rivets. Shouldn't be much to it. Now the rivets are a lot softer than that shaft. Let's find a nice solid corner under one of the legs here. Alright. So hopefully our diameters are going to be the same, and this thing is going to fit on the old shaft. Let's check it out. So it turns out that things aren't the same anyway. So our new shaft that we couldn't machine actually has a smaller OD than the replacement. So when we try to put our old shaft on a new drum, it doesn't fit, which is good because we can bore the drum. I think we can do a center hub enlargement to fit this. Hole pattern is a different radius, so what I think I'm going to do is drill a new hole pattern between the existing pattern and make up rivets for it. Now hopefully we don't run into plan C. Well, so we did some measurements on everything. The old shaft mic'd up to 3011. Put it in the camera. And the drum itself mic'd up to 3015, so it wasn't a very tight fit. I think we're going to shoot for something a little closer. Perhaps a couple of thou press fit to make sure this is centered up when it goes on the engine, because it does turn at engine speed. And we want to make sure everything is pretty concentric. Got our new drum chucked up here, and of course because it's in a 3-jaw, I feel I'm going to have to verify all the measurements on this. Somebody is going to say the 3-jaw isn't accurate, and I'm going to have a ton of indicator glare. Let's see if we can get you in a better spot. So just when you thought it was impossible to get an indicator shot without glare, turns out it is. So this is the best I can do. We got it in our 3-jaw, snugged up, and we stick an indicator on the inside bore and on the face. And if you look at the inside bore, we got some lumps where it was prior riveted. So we got about 5 on that one. Between every rivet though, it goes back to within half thou of 0. So some we have 3, some we have, well, 5. But like I said, we're getting within half thou of 0, so we're going to call her pretty good. On the face we're getting about 3 total. So I think we're going to let her go at that and rebore this to fit our old shaft. That's pretty much 3 half thou by caliper, so it's close enough, isn't it? It says 3 there. So let's give it 9 more. Well, we're at 8. That's 3 thou on 3 inches. Yeah, we're going to go with that. Okay, see if we can deburr the edges a bit. So before we get all crazy and press this together, we have to drill the hole pattern in the drum before we assemble things. So we'll just use a quick caliper method to do it. Simply zero on one of your bolt holes, and then use your caliper to measure the diameter across, and then get your radius from there. So we're looking at 3,660 as our diameter. Half of that will be our radius. So our tool of choice for alignment on our rotary table is an unused snowmobile wrist pin. I used to work at a Polaris shop. We had a few of those. So we'll get her eyeballed in. Then we'll bring down our quill and get her fine-tuned a bit. So we're all ready. We have our part mounted. We index the older hole pattern right over the jaws, so we'll miss our jaws as we go around and do our 6-hole pattern. We're out our 1.83 radius. I'm just going to scale it between here, between the 2 older holes to get it in the middle. So it's 2.1 to the outside. We got her set at 1050, which should be the start of our pattern. So we'll lock down our table, set a 0 here and on the dial, and do 6 holes at 60 degrees. The hole size for the older shaft is 280, which is a letter K drill bit, I believe. We're going to be using, what was it I picked out here? 9/32, which is a half thou big. A nice new letter K would be nice, but no can do. Slow that down to something reasonable. And some cutting to do. Okay. Let's see how it all goes. Okay, time to get making some rivets, I guess. Well, so here's where we're at. We have our hole pattern done, our hub pressed on. I guess tomorrow we will make some rivets up, call it good. To go. So we're all ready to go riveting. I've got myself a little flat disc set up over the leg of the table so it'll be nice and rigid. All the rivets have been left a little bit proud of the inner shaft, about 50 thousandths, so that they'll land on the die and not the shaft itself. When we get the riveting done, we'll go back to the lathe, we'll trim them down to the original height of 80 thousandths. Made myself a little punch with a little ball nose end mill in the end of it to center on the rivets. I tried one cold forming, doesn't work that well, so we're going to add a bit of heat and squat these puppies down. Well, it looks pretty good. Okay, so we're back at the height that we originally measured, so we should have no interference problems inside the engine. I guess we're done. So I guess all that remains now is to verify whether our work was actually worth doing and if it's accurate. So I'm just going to drop this into 3-jaw. I know what this one runs on average. Very lightly tighten it. So let's do a baseline on the shaft in here. Not sure if you're going to see that. Okay, so we dimmed the camera down a bit in manual exposure. Things are looking better. So let's get a run on this. So there's our low. We'll get a 0 for that, and we're showing too high at this point. So let's put a mark here, and we'll call that our high. So we'll move our indicator to the inside drum. It should fit in there quite nice, I think. So we'll set up a 0 in here. Sort of like that, and that was our marked high. So we're showing well, we got a bump here. So there's a bit of a bump there. So our high here is opposite. Yeah, which it would be, wouldn't it? Sometimes you gotta think about this for a while. So we're showing 1, 2, 3.5 high there, which is opposite of this one, which should be right because we're measuring on the back side. So I think in the grand scheme of things, that's not too bad. You know, I'm going to call my customer and tell him to come and take it.